Well, good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, June the 10th. Hey, we're going to be joined by Tom, Lee, Josh, and Gentry to tell us what's going on their bodies of water. We're going to try to help you put a few more fish in the boat. We'll be right back with what the guys have to say. Well, good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, June the 10th. Hey, we're joined by Lee Pitts, our good friend from Weiss Lake, the crappie king of Weiss Lake. Lee, what's happening up there?
Things are looking pretty good at Weiss right now. You know, it's getting summertime. We went from 2 Saturdays ago where you had to try to search and find what clothes you could in the boat to all of a sudden you're in shorts and a t-shirt and wishing you had a little cool breeze blowing. But fish are biting right now. I've had some trips this week and still having some crappie trips, and we're catching a few. You know, they moved out to the deeper places on these deeper brush piles and some of the deeper places on the river channel and even in these creeks, but catching some pretty good crappie. The bass bite has been pretty good, still catching fish in the grass. A lot of these fish haven't really moved out to the deeper haunts that they'll stay there in the summertime. A few have that are kind of close to some of the spawning areas. That first little drop or something you can get 6-8 feet with some trash on it, some rock or something like that. Fish are holding, but they're trying to get out there to the river ledges. It's just it's going to take a little bit more of this heat to kind of push them out. Grass bite, spinnerbait, jig, getting a frog bite a little bit in the morning. They've kind of gotten off of some of the really chasing buzzbait type stuff, and you can still catch some fish on seawalls, something you can slow down. But Weiss is looking pretty good right now.
All right, so we've talked about Weiss Lake a little bit. Let's talk Neely Henry. What's going on here?
Neely is, you know, Weiss and Neely fish a whole lot alike. I think that Neely is now the guys that are going up and playing that current a little bit. They're getting a good early morning bite if they can get some water moving. Still catching some on a spinnerbait, pitching a jig up around some of that wood cover up river. And Neely's still got a good grass bite. You know, when I fish Neely, I like to kind of stay in that grass as long as I possibly can because I know that you've got the capability, especially flipping. You know, they may slack off of that, burning a frog or something like that, walking a frog through it. But if you're kind of punching some of that thicker stuff and flipping a jig, things like that, D-bomb, something that they can kind of look at just for a little bit, you can still catch good sacks of fish in the grass this time of year. Once those big pleasure boats get to kind of, especially on the river, once they get to washing it out a little bit, you may have to back off. But bass fishing, Neely's still strong right now. On the crappie end of it, we're catching some fish on the docks at Neely. Some of your deeper docks, shooting docks on that, catching some good crappie down that way.
Well, that's what we thought we'd hear from you. Appreciate it there, Lee. We'll talk to you again next week, brother. Good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, June 10th. We're joined by Gentry Gordy, who's going to start us off at Jordan Lake this week. Let's talk Jordan. Gentry, what's happening over there?
A lot of the same for now, Dano. The weather's holding pretty stable. The water temperatures, it's starting to come up, so it's starting to push them fish, you know, a little bit further off away from the bank. You know, you can still catch them up there, but, you know, now's the time when they start getting grouped up. Some of them longer points, you know, that 15, 18-foot range, shaky head, ball jig, you know, your Carolina rig and all is going to come into play.
Do you like heavier weights on that stuff, or do you going to kind of stay with that 1/4 to 5/16 range?
I like a little heavier just because I'm impatient. You know, I throw like a 1/2 ounce shaky head with a big 6-aught hook in it, you know, with a bigger worm like that this time of year. And it works well, you know, all the way up the river.
All right, so a little bit bigger shaky head with a bigger worm. Do you like the same approach with the jig? Is it a bigger, heavier jig, or do you like more of a finesse approach?
I tend to lean a little more towards a 1/2 or you know, maybe a little bit bigger, but you know, this time of year, 1/2 is about right. Especially like on the little ball jig, you don't have the resistance in the skirt and all. But if I go up the river, just depends on the current. You know, sometimes I like that slower fall with a 1/4 ounce. Of course, if the water's moving and I want to get it on down, I'll stick with the 1/2 up the river.
All right, let's talk Lake Martin a little bit. What's going on over there?
Eh, Typical Lake Martin. Still your buzz baits and your top water still catching some fish, but this is the time of year. You know, a lot of them will group up. The spots, and you just got to weed through all the small ones. But two, you can actually go up the river a little ways to try to get away from some of the boat traffic. I mean, it's just something you deal with this time of year. But a lot of those big boats can't get up under that train trestle on the north end of Martin. And
Yeah.
this is, you either go out deep early, but when the boat traffic gets up, I kind of make my way up the river and try to get away from some of the boat traffic.
Is the current happening, or are we starting to see some of it slow down?
It's slowing down, that's just a lack of rain. But usually, on the north end of Martin, there's usually some type of movement. It's all dependent on, nothing's moving right now. We ain't had rain in a while. Not enough to,
Right.
Get the water moving.
Well, Gentry, as always, brother, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, June 10th. We're joined by Josh Herron, who's packing up some of that Tato design stuff to get shipped out. Josh, what's happening at Logan, Martin, and Lay Lake these days?
Man, it's we are definitely approaching our full blown summertime patterns at the moment, and definitely doesn't make it that easy considering lack of rain and lack of current flow that we've had. But I
Right.
mean, man, fish are still biting. I mean, it's still taking that 14 to 16 on average on the weekends right now. So dock fish are starting to set up a little bit better on some of these deeper river docks. But it seems like we still have a lot of scattered fish at the moment. We don't have really enough current to set them up on offshore places on a consistent basis. But buzzbait bite's still going pretty good. Water's actually in a little bit of running grass at Logan right now, so you can get a few bites on a swim jig, popping frog, stuff like that early. And then you just kind of got to settle into the grind.
Is that the way you got to do it? You got to run early, cover water, and then kind of hunker down into some of those points and stuff? Is that what you got to look for?
Yeah, I mean, man, you need to have them caught by about 8:30 right now. It's and they're biting pretty decent early. I mean, like I said,
Okay.
you can catch them on a swim jig, you can catch them on a buzz bait, you catch them on a frog, you can catch them on a spook. But we've also had a big moon the past week too, so these fish have been feeding really hard and really shallow at night. So it's that kind of makes that midday lull that much of more of a lull right now with them eating all night long.
I've been hearing some stuff at Lay Lake of maybe some flats with some wood on it. Is that still going on, or are they starting to move out now?
No, I mean there's always fish that are shallow at Lay. There's just it seems more true in the past couple of years that fish are getting out and staying out a lot more. But yeah, no, you can run around right now at Lay. You can throw a square bill, you can throw a spinnerbait, you can throw. Well, I mean, at Lay you can actually flip docks too. They become a viable option. But there's a lot of brush in Lay Lake right now, and that's something that these fish really kind of key up on, especially this time of year. That and standing timber.
We're hearing a little bit of crappie on Neely Henry, specifically around docks. Are you seeing crappie fishermen out there at Logan and Lay still?
You see everything at Lay and Logan right now. You see wakeboard boats circling crappie boats, so it's kind of hard to pick them out right at the moment.
I gotcha. All right, Josh, we appreciate everything, brother. We'll talk to you again next week, man.
Thanks, bud.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, June 10th. Hey, we are joined by Tom Ott, who spends his time up there on that big lake in the sky up there at Lake Guntersville. Tom, what's happening on that Tennessee River impoundment?
Dano, we're still catching quite a few fish up. The ledge fishing is obviously a good deal. We talked last week about getting out in the grass. I did that. We caught somewhere between 35 and 45 fish in an outing. It was phenomenal. The fish are up there just eating brim like nobody's business. But, I don't know how long that's going to last. It's planned, but, the big fish were kind of hard to come by. 4-pounders were scarce, but 3s were a lot of fun, especially if you're just out to catch fish. But, we got whooped up on by the ledge guys, and I think that's definitely where the the big fish are. These guys are out there fishing for them anywhere from 15 to 25 foot of water and catching some really nice fish. I like to get my string pulled a little bit more and not be around a crowd, and we did that and accomplished what I wanted to. But I think you can catch fish from shallow to deep anywhere you want right now. The brim are eating, a lot of brim, a lot of bass. Great time to be out there if you can take the heat.
How many boats are you looking at out there on those ledges? Are you looking at hundreds? Are you looking at dozens? What are you looking at?
Well, I think what it is the way the ledge is set up. There's just not. It's not like you can just get on them and go straight down the ledge and fish. There's a lot, specific areas. So I would say dozens to, in the upper teens. But nobody that I know of really likes to fish within a cast of somebody else unless you know who they are. And I think most ethical guys aren't going to move in on you. I mean, you get some folks that'll move in and try to idle something, but for the most part, that's non-existent. That's what makes it tough, is just getting on somewhere, because the fishing is so timing. It's a timing thing. You might pull up and catch them right off the bat, or again, you might sit there for 3 hours and just haul water.
What are the techniques that guys are using out there on the ledges right now?
A lot of structure heads. A big thing that's come on here recently has been just a big structure, just a big football head jig with a lot of skirt to it. But there's a lot of crawfish out there right now. Carolina rigs is another big deal. Tons of drop shots, especially after the big boys were here a couple of weeks ago. Lots of drop shots, lots of wacky rigging or Nico rigging going on out there too. So some guys are starting to play around with those little, smaller baits, small swim baits, like Jacob Wheeler was throwing. Those are real popular. I think we stick more with the traditional big swim bait. A lot of glide baiting going on right now too. That's a very popular deal. I've seen a ton more glide baits tied up on deck boats in the last 2 weeks than I have in a long time.
Well, Tom, as always, brother, we appreciate everything, and we'll talk to you again next week. Well, that'll do it for our Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, June the 10th. Thanks to the guys for helping us out, helping us put a few more fish in the boat. And don't forget, if you're looking for that new bass boat, whether it's a Falcon, a Skeeter, a Bass Cat, you're looking for that Avid or G3 aluminum, we've got it. Plus, if you're in the market for a pontoon for the family, come see Katie, Patrick, and Melissa. They'll be able to help you get on the water, stay on the water. That's what Bucks Island's all about, taking care of you, because you are the best part of Bucks Island. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week.